Namaskar and welcome to the session on principle and method of manufacture of ice cream. The objective of this lesson is that after going through this, you will be able to state the principle involved in manufacture of ice cream. We will be able to select the ingredients required in preparation of ice cream, outline the processing steps and explain their importance in manufacture of ice cream. We all enjoy ice cream and because of its sweet taste and frozen and refreshing sensation it gives. But let us see what is ice cream. It is a frozen dairy product made by freezing a mix with agitation to incorporate air and ensure uniformity and consistency. And what are the ingredients used in mix are milk and milk products, sugar, dextrose, corn syrup in dry or liquid form, or other optional ingredients like flavoring, color and stabilizer or emulsifier. We can also define ice cream as a product made by suitable blending and processing of cream and other milk products together with sugar with or without stabilizer, emulsifier, flavor, color and by incorporation of air during freezing by agitation, with the objective that the end product should have pleasant creamy flavor and smooth body and texture. So, we can say define the ice cream in a way that it is a frozen product prepared by freezing of a mix which contains sugar, milk solids and color and flavor as per the requirement is there. Now, let us come to the principle of this. Basically it is freezing the sugar and milk solids in freezing in such a way that ultimately product is having creamy flavor, smooth sensation on our tongue and we feel of chillness when we take the product is there. So, it involves freezing of the sugar and milk solid is there and what we call this as a mixture of sugar and milk solids as a mix. So, first important aspect is preparation of mix by standardizing and blending of quality ingredients, that is dairy based ingredients and non dairy based ingredients. Then this mix is to be homogenized so that when we freeze it we are able to incorporate the air. We have to pasteurize it so that it is safe for the human consumption. After pasteurization we do the cooling and aging of the mix and then we go for the freezing of the mix and there we lower the temperature, we convert a part of the water into ice and we introduce air also into this. And the last stage is hardening of ice cream where around 85 to 90% of water is frozen without agitation and then the product is ready for the storage is there. So, principle we can say it is basically freezing of sugar and milk solids, what we call them as mix, and that mix should be processed in such a way that we are able to incorporate air, we are able to make it safe and we have a good body and texture which are desirable by the customers are there. Now, let us see what are the steps involved. First step is selection of ingredients, because we mentioned there are two types of ingredients are there, dairy based ingredients and non dairy based ingredients. Dairy based ingredients like source of fat, source of milk solid not fat, these are known as the dairy based ingredients, and the non dairy based ingredients like sugar, stabilizers, color, flavor, these are the ingredients. But in all the aspects we have to take care that the quality of the ingredients should be good. It is the fresh ingredients are used, the quality of ice cream is going to be very good. So, the quality plays an important role. We should always select the fresh and quality ingredients. Then we come to the formulation of mix, that how do we formulate the mix? By blending of the different ingredients, that is liquid ingredients, solid ingredients, and then we balance the mix, because there are legal standards are there, and then the quantity of fat, SNF, stabilizer, flavors, they also influence the body and texture of the ice cream. So, balancing of mix is very important. The way the fat, SNF, every constituent plays an important role. The next step is homogenization of mix. We have to homogenize the mix. We bring the temperature of mix to 65 to 70 degrees centigrade, and then we homogenize it. Then we come the pasteurization of mix, and it is done so that all the pathogens are killed, and the ice cream what we consume is safe for the human consumption. We will see what are the other rules also, but this is the pasteurization. After pasteurization of mix to the desired temperature, there are two methods are there: long time low temperature and high temperature and short time. Then we come to the cooling and aging of the mix, where the mix is cooled to the 4 degrees centigrade. After cooling and aging, we go for the freezing of the mix is there. Then we do the freezing in a freezer. There are 2 or 3 types of freezer there, batch freezer or continuous, and once we are taking the softy freezer, then that there is a different type of freezer is there. After freezing the mix, it is around -4, -5, -8, we can draw the ice cream at different temperature. Then we draw the ice cream, and this could be at -4, 5 or -6 is there. We pack the product in suitable container, and then we take the ice cream for hardening, where the remaining amount of water is frozen, so that the final product is having around 80 to 90% of the water is frozen, and then the product is taken to transportation and storage. So, the steps involved is basically, if we re-say it, first is selection of ingredients, then formulation of mix, so that we can have the desired amount of fat, SNF, and the stabilizers which is required for the legal purposes, and as well as for the good quality ice cream. We balance the mix depending upon whether we want to add more fat, we want to more SNF, and then we homogenize, pasteurize, then we cool and age of the mix. Cooling is done up to 4 degrees centigrade, aging is done up to minimum around 4 hours, or it can be done more also. Then freezing, drying of the ice cream, packaging, hardening, and transportation and storage is there. Now, let us take one by one the role and importance of each step is there. First is selection of ingredients. How do we select the ingredients? The first thing is availability of products. Like we mentioned in our introduction lecture, that the ice cream can be started at cottage scale also, small scale also, or it could be taken in commercial way also. So, depending upon what level you are working, where you are working, so you have to see what type of raw material or products are available with you. Whether, like for take the source of fat, whether the cream is available, butter is available, butter oil, or the whatever the source is available, you can select. Similarly, for the milk solid not fat, there could be different choices like skim milk powder, condensed milk could be there, or we may like to use whey powder also at times. So, what type of products are availability, that is the first thing we have to see. Then the perishability of the products, what is the shelf life of the product, what is our batch size, and what is the perishability of these products we have to see. Third thing is convenience in handling, what type of processing equipment we are handling. So, we should be able to select that is the convenience in handling, how we are able to affect. We also have to take care of on flavor, body and texture. Like we mentioned, for softy ice cream we need more dry ice cream. Then if we put it the corn solids, it will give us the dry ice cream. So, these type of affect also, like if we want to have fresh creamy flavor, we may go for the cream instead of this. So, these each constituents, each ingredients play an important role. So, we can select depending upon the market to which we are catering. Then the cost, because as a processor we want that the cost should be minimum without affecting the quality. We have to optimize the cost and the cost of the equipment what we are getting. Like if the cream is available, you at a lower cost, go for cream instead of going for the stored butter or butter oil is there, then the equipment available. So these are the factors. But the main important point is that the ingredients should be fresh and quality ingredients. Like it's what we say is the seed plays an important role. So here also in ice cream also the fresh and quality ingredients should be used. Then we classified the ingredients into dairy and non-dairy ingredients. For milk fat we may go for the fresh cream or butter, and for the milk solid not fat we may go for the high heat skim milk powder or condensed milk, we can go depending upon the availability. Then there is the stabilizers and emulsifiers and colors and flavors which are available with you is there. Then we come to the formulation of mix, that is what we want is a well balanced mix should be there, because that quality plays an important role by having the balanced mix is there. Now when we say the balanced mix mean, what it requires is that there should be correct ratio between fat to sugar. Like if you have higher fat percentage, then you require also more sugar, otherwise the ice cream will taste very differently, more oily it is there. Similarly, the ratio of total solids to water is also important is there, because if the water is more, then the freezing point will come down. So you have to depend what is the total solid to water. The one criteria is based on the our legal standards also, that how much of the total solids which have been prescribed by this is there. Similarly, there is a role of fat to SNF, because nowadays in the our Food Safety and Standard Act they have specified that minimum of protein which has to be there. There is also ratio of the milk solid not fat to the total solids is also there. Like I was giving the example, if we go for the softy, then the milk solid not fat should be less as compared to total solids is there. These ratio of milk solid not fat to total solids also depends upon what is the storage time of the product, what is turnover of these things are there. So these are the correct ratio we have to select depending upon our market, depending upon type of product and where we are feeding, we have to select the correct ratio is there. Then we calculate the ingredients and standardization, and one of these things we have done a complete exercise on how to calculate the different ingredients by algebraic equations, and then you can standardize your mix also. Simultaneously equation we can do it is there. Then we come to the balancing of the mix. Here we select the appropriate amount of ingredients which is required, because if it select like example is higher amount of milk solid not fat, it will leads to sandy texture will be there. Now if by mistake or by something if you have added more emulsifier, it will yield very dry body and fluffy texture it will be obtained. Now excess stabilizer will give body very soggy, very hard body will be there. It will also affect the whipping ability is there. Now if the less stabilizer and milk solid not fat is used, it will yield coarse texture will be there. If the emulsifier is also less, it will have the wet body. So every constituents have important, and in the role of the ingredients we have discussed in detail that what is the role of fat, what is the role of SNF, what is the stabilizer, emulsifier. So we have to see that our product should not be sandy, our product should be very dry and it should have a good whipping ability. These are some of the characteristics, desirable characteristics of the ice cream is there. Then we blend the mix. How do we blend the mix? First we will take all the liquid ingredients, mix them and bring the temperature around 45 to 50 degrees centigrade gradually. Then all the solid ingredients are mixed, and when we mix the solid ingredients, and then we add into the liquid ingredients. Now For some of the stabilizers or emulsifiers, we have to take care, like sodium alginate must be added in the hot mix, should be there, and color and flavor also added before freezing. They are never added at the time of before, I will say before the mix is pasteurized. They are always added at the freezing time. When we are taking after the cooling and aging, when we take to the mix for to the freezer, then we add the color, flavor, nuts, fruits. At this stage we add the product is there. Now we come to the homogenization. It plays an important role. As we know, in homogenization the fat crystal size is reduced to less than 2 microns. Now what does, when we do the homogenization, like for the milk, its same purpose it serves for the ice cream also. There is no cream layer. It prevents churning of milk fat. Normally, because when we are freezing, there could be chances of churning depending upon the fat content also. So it prevents churning of the fat is there. It is more problem with the when we make the softy ice cream is there. The second advantage is it improves the whipping ability is there. So when it improves the whipping abilities, it gives the uniform and smooth texture to the product is there. Some of the other added advantages are like it will, we can also reduce the aging period, and stabilizer amount could be also reduces. It also prevents sandiness and coarse texture is there. Now temperature time we mentioned, it should be around 65 to 70 degrees centigrade. And what is the pressure? Because normally we prefer 2 stage is there. So 175 kilogram per square centimeter to 205, and second stage is around 35 to kilogram per square centimeter. Then we do the pasteurization of mix. The basic purpose, like milk, ensure safety of the product. Product is safe by destructing the pathogens, right? So when we kill the microorganisms, it also improves the shelf life and keeping quality of the product is there. When the temperature is high, it also helps in mixing of the ingredients. Now there are certain other textural benefits. It also gives the stability to the mix during freezing. It also helps in improving the whipping ability of the mixes there. Because of these characteristics, it prevents the coarse texture and sandiness is there. Then it also gives the improves the flavor, more clean flavor is available and provides smooth bodies there. Now these are the advantages, but then what are the time temperature combination we use? As I mentioned, there are two methods. One is low temperature long time, what we call the batch method, where the temperature should be around 68.5 degrees centigrade, not less than 68.5 for not less than 30 minutes is there. And HTST method, high temperature short time, that is 80 degrees centigrade for not less than 20 seconds. So this is the time temperature combination. So remember here the time temperature combination is different from the milk because the total solids are more, so we have to go for higher treatment, and the shelf, we have to increase the shelf life of the product also is there. Then comes the cooling and aging. This plays in very important points, important part, because it improves the body and texture of the ice cream. It improves the whipping ability of the mix is there. It increases the overrun is there, and also increases the melting resistance of the ice cream. So these are the certain advantages of the cooling and aging. At what temperature and time we have to do? We cool the ice cream mix to 4 degrees centigrade, and minimum should be 4 hours. You can go for more also, because when we cool it and age it, it provides stability to proteins. Fat is also solidified. Stabilizer is able to swell and combine with the water, and so that the water will not go into large size of the ice crystals is there, and good whipping ability and good texture we get with this product. So cooling and aging is important. Now the core, what we call the freezing of the mix is there. In freezing, we freeze a part of the water. Normally it could be in range of 35 to 70% of water is frozen in the first stage of freezing. Now at this stage there are two things are happening. One is incorporation of air into the mix, and simultaneously we get the smooth texture is there. Now, in this, if the freezing is slow, then we are going to get the coarse and sandy texture. But if the freezing is fast, then it will improve the body and texture is there. So, freezing should be very fast. Now, that level of freezing, that is slow or fast freezing, and the extrusion or what we call the drying temperature also plays an important role. If drying temperature is low, it will provide the smooth texture to the product. The more we go lower temperature, it will provide the smooth texture to the product. You can see that how much time is there. If you see the kind of freezer, like you mentioned, batch freezer, continuous freezer, and soft freezer, which is normally used for the softy is there. To get the 90% of overrun, then we can take 7 minutes is there, and drying temperature is -3 to -4 degrees centigrade. And in continuous freezer, it is around 24 seconds it will take, and -5 to -6 degrees centigrade is there. And in soft serve ice cream, 3 minutes and -7 to -8 degrees centigrade is the temperature. So, this is the time taken for the freezing is there. Now, there are certain mechanical factors which affect the freezing process. What are those mechanical process? Like type and make of ice cream, condition of freezer wall and blades. This is very important, we have to see. Speed of dasher also, temperature of refrigerant which is flowing around the freezer, velocity of the refrigerant, overrun desired, drying temperature of ice cream. These are certain mechanical factors. So, we have to, the freezer maintenance is very important thing. We have to see that the blades are very sharp, the walls are also very clean, and the dasher is also proper, and the flow of refrigerant should be proper, because we mentioned the fast freezing will give the lower size and more smooth texture. If the freezing is slow, and you will get the bigger size of the ice crystal. That is why, because if you have taken the ice cream from a very cottage scale where the hand freezer is used, because if the refrigeration is not very fast, freezing is not very fast, we are going to get the coarse texture is there. Similarly, the characteristics of mix also plays an important role. Composition of mix, like I mentioned, is basically freezing the sugar and milk solid. If sugar percentage is more, the freezing point is going to be lower. Like for 11% mix SNF, it is around -2.5 degrees centigrade. If you are using more fat, the freezing point will be higher. If you are using more sugar, then the freezing point will be very less. So, the composition of the mix and freezing point of the mix, they are correlated there. Similarly, acid content of mix, acidity also plays a very important role. We are emphasizing that the fresh ingredients should be used. The ingredients that will depend upon the acidity of the initial raw materials, and then the other very harmful will be developed acidity is there, which is because of the lactic acid bacteria. Now, when the acidity is around 0.187% normally, and the pH is around 6.3. If the acidity is, I mean, so the pH is lower or acidity is higher, then we are going to get into problem, because of there will be increase in viscosity, whipping ability will be less, the flavor will be bad, and the protein can get destabilized also. Then kind of ingredients, particularly carrying the fat, they also play an important role in the freezing process, because there is a restructuring is there when we do the freezing of this, and method of processing the mix, these things plays an important role. Then freezing gives a definite texture, and texture depends upon the size and number of air cells and ice crystals, and unfrozen material in the ice cream is there. Now, air incorporation is there, can be done what the mix attains some consistency is there. We have to remember that ice cream becomes stiffened if mixing of air is done with the freezing. So, then we turn off the refrigeration and agitation continues. So, we have to take care in the freezing process, because freezing does two purpose, texture and overrun. So, air incorporation should be done after it attains some consistency, but then we have to close the refrigerant, and then agitation should continue, otherwise we will get the very stiffened product is there. The Overrun, what we get is, it's a volume of ice cream obtained in excess of the volume of the mix. This is the only product where the air is also paid. So, what we call the percent overrun is there. Like if you take 500 ml of mix, you will get 1 liter of ice cream. So, it is a 50% is air is there, and the air is mainly incorporated during freezing is there. If the more air is there, we will get the snowy fluffy ice cream. If the less, then we get the soggy and heavy ice cream is there. Then we come to the packaging. It pack the product because it provides protection and makes the product attractive, improves the marketing and sale. What are the requirements for package? The package should be that there should 2 criteria: protection against moisture and protection against the temperature fluctuation. Packaging material should be selected, the moisture should not go inside, comes outside, and protection against the temperature fluctuation should be able to handle. Then we come to the hardening, where the product is made firm and hard, and it is a basically freezing process, continuation of freezing process, but without agitation. It provides body to the product. Temperature of ice cream could be in range of -23 to -30 degrees centigrade, and about 80 to 85% water which is there is converted to ice cream. And here also the same principle, fast cooling will make the ice cream more smooth, and slow cooling will make the coarse and sandy body will be there. What are the factors which affect the hardening? The same, like initial composition of mix, fat, SNF, sugar. What is the drying temperature from freezer also in place. Overrun in the ice cream also in place. Size and shape of package, then temperature of air in the hardening room, and rate of air circulation in the hardening room. These are certain factors which affect the hardening, but we have to ensure that the hardening is as fast, that is freezing is as fast as it is possible. After hardening, we have to shift for the storage. Now, keep the basic purpose is keep the product fresh and safe, and it also helps in converting whatever remaining water is there to ice, and it gives the more drier body. What we have to take care that the temperature fluctuation should be minimum, because if the temperature fluctuation is there, there could be shrinkage, coarse and sandy texture could be there. So, this we have to store. Normally, we store the product for the 5 to 15 days before it released into the market is there. Storage temperature could be -11 to -15 degrees centigrade. Close piling of ice cream should be there. Then there should be uniform circulation of cold air should be there, and avoid frequent opening and closing of the doors or the hardening storage rooms is there. Then the transportation, where the product reaches to the consumer in a proper body and texture, and it should be also done under refrigeration. The texture is lost if it is not properly done, and texture must be in refrigerated trucks. Dry ice or frozen ice -78 degrees centigrade should be there. To conclude, that in the principle is basically it is a freezing of the sugar and milk solids with a proper body and texture. The quality of the ingredients are very important. The steps involved are balancing of the mix, mixing, homogenization, pasteurization, cooling and aging, then freezing, hardening and storage at low temperature. Thank you.